Okay, so my name is Chris Miltenberger, W5CMM. Computer security is my 9-to-5 job. I've been working at LSU Health Sciences Center for a little over 16 years doing network security. What I really want to try to do this evening is try to take some of that enterprise knowledge and give it to you in a form that you can use at home in your ham shack. First thing we want to do is identify what the risks that we're going to be facing. Self-inflicted harm, we do it. Security breaches, data leaks, phishing emails, malware, support scams, I'm sure everybody's gotten those calls, wireless networks. Some of you will probably be very afraid of using wireless networks after I finish. Internet of Things, this is a new and emerging concern. And then stuff that's not so much cyber, but hardware failure. It's something that we face in our ham shacks all the time. And then weather and infrastructure problems. So let's take a look at each of these. So self-inflicted harm, doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. File sharing, what they call wares, it's basically, it's hacked or cracked software. Poor security practices, you don't keep your software patched, you don't install updates, you're going to run into problems with that. Poor equipment maintenance. You need to go through and periodically dust your computer off. I know most people are very careful with how they treat their radios. You need to show a little bit of that care to your computer equipment as well. And then lack of situational awareness. You don't even realize you're doing something that is going to get yourself in trouble. Security breaches we read about them on the news all the time. Yahoo had 1.5 billion accounts breached last year. Before that, Target was considered large. And if you look on it, it was only 70 million. Before that, Home Depot was hacked by a guy sitting in his car outside of Home Depot, that he was able to get in through their wireless network and get in and hack their database server. TJ Maxx, I believe they were probably hit by the same group. Data leaks, we've got a lot of leakage. Chelsea Manning, who just went free. Edward Snowden leaked a lot of stuff from the CIA. WikiLeaks seems to come up with information from all over the place. And shadow brokers, and these are the ones that leaked the exploits that were used, or at least the 2 exploits that were used in the WannaCry outbreak 2 weeks ago. And we're going to look at that one a little closer. Phishing emails. Everybody gets these. They're usually from someone that's pretending to be someone else. And it's going to be, oh, your mailbox is full. I need you to verify your account. We've got a package waiting. You need to go ahead and click on this invoice. Or I need you to authorize a financial transaction. So all of these can lead to big problems. Malware is kind of a general term. Originally, back in the early days of computing, you only had to worry about viruses. And then in 1989, we got the first instance of self-replicating malware with the Morris worm. After that, Trojans, these are pieces of malware that hide themselves on your computer to provide remote access. And you someone can take over your machine from outside of your network. Bots, they're basically used to command your computer to attack. What they call a bot herder can go ahead and take a bunch of bot-infected computers and use it to attack CNN, Microsoft, whoever, in what they call a distributed denial of service attack. And distributed means it's from a bunch of different machines. And what they do is they try to overload their servers. Scareware is relatively new. Your machine gets infected and you've got a little thing that displays on there that says that the FBI or Homeland Security caught you with something you shouldn't have and you need to pay to get past it. Most of that's actually relatively easy to recover from. But the new one is ransomware, and new as far as really becoming, coming to our attention. The first piece of ransomware was back, I believe, in the early 90s or the late 80s. But ransomware will actually encrypt your machine and hold it for ransom. So actually, before we look at this, I want to show you an example of malware infecting a machine. And
in this video, we'll be looking at a strain of ransomware known as Jigsaw within LMG's Virtual Play Lab. This malware encrypts many common file types and then attempts to force the victim to pay, in this case, 0.4 bitcoins to decrypt their files. My name is Dan Featherman, and I'm a senior security consultant with LMG Security. LMG Security is a security consulting company focusing on penetration testing, digital forensics, compliance, and training. In this video, you will see our fictitious user, Dan D. O'Sullivan, click on a link in a phishing email, infecting his computer with the Jigsaw ransomware, which will encrypt local files on the victim's desktop, as well as files within the company's mapped network drives and cloud replicated repositories, specifically in this case, OneDrive. Now let's watch Jigsaw lock up our user's files and hold them for ransom.
Here Dan D. O'Sullivan logs in. And now we are going to have Dan D. O'Sullivan open the Edge browser and browse out to outlook.office365.com. In this environment, the Office 365 application is effectively the Exchange environment for this enterprise, HackMe Inc. And here we see we've received an email from Evil Hacksaw, our malicious actor in this scenario. Evil Hacksaw has conveniently sent us a zip file containing supposedly deposit information. Our unsuspecting user downloads the zip file, and now we are going to extract the contents. We then run the deposits application, noting that this prompts us for authentication, which would not be typical of an Office document or a text document. Now we receive a thank you notification indicating that our software has been registered and providing us with a confirmation code. Now we're just going to organize our window here so that we can see a couple of the network shares as well as the synced OneDrive folder. Jigsaw successfully encrypts the first file, mars.jpg, appending the .fun file extension. You can also see that in the background there, the desktop, the files have been encrypted as well. We can also see that the OneDrive folder with the encrypted files has successfully synced back out to the cloud, which effectively will replicate these encrypted files down to all of the workstations synchronized to that OneDrive account. And in the top window, we're looking at the Y drive, which is mapped to whack fs whack data. It is the data shared folder on our file server. The files are actively being encrypted, adding the .fun extension and updating the timestamps. We do have two mapped network drives on this client, the Y drive and the W drive. The W drive is mapped to the IT shared folder, also on the file server. And you can see here that the files on that server were not encrypted. We finally received the first indication that Jigsaw is running. It provides the GUI environment with Billy the puppet from the Saw movies. So here we get a description of the actual extortion that Jigsaw is trying to attempt. It will delete a file every hour, and that is at least one file. As it increments, it reportedly will delete additional files. The extortion amount is supposed to increment as well every hour. We did not see that in our observation. It should be noted that at the time of this recording, the 0.4 bitcoins demanded in the ransom or the extortion attempt here actually equates to just under $300. And here you see we've got a countdown timer. It begins at 60 minutes. It provides a Bitcoin wallet address for the unsuspecting user to send their payment to. We are going to attempt to close this window. And we are provided with an alert that says you are about to make a very bad decision. Are you sure about it? Clicking OK or the X on this prompt has the same result. We're also going to look at the encrypted files reported by Jigsaw. You'll note this is a lengthy list of files, but everything we're seeing thus far is in the C drive. So we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom here. At the very bottom, you'll see that we do have some files encrypted in the Y directory. This is the data shared folder mapped from our file server. Notice that there are also no encrypted files reported from the W drive, which was the IT shared folder on that same file server. Interesting to note here, the seconds seem to drop the leading 0. This does appear to correct itself whenever the seconds reach an integer of 10. We watched this countdown timer proceed all the way to 0. Reportedly, the extortion amount is supposed to increase. We did not see that. We did see evidence that within the View Encrypted Files browser provided by Jigsaw, we did see evidence that a file was deleted after an hour. However, when we came back to check it after 2 hours, the application appeared to have crashed. Jigsaw is running under the Firefox process if viewed through Process Explorer. And after the 2-hour mark, that process had died.
This video was produced by LMG Security. Please visit us online at www.lmgsecurity.com.
Okay, so since this video was made, they now have a decrypting tool for Jigsaw. 0.4 bitcoins is now close to $900. It's Bitcoin prices crossed over $2,000 earlier this week. So WannaCry came out about 2 weeks ago. It ruined my lunchtime and afternoon. The way that it spreads through what's called server messenger block. It's what everybody knows is Windows file shares. It uses server messenger block version 1, which is an old and basically deprecated version. Right now we have version 3, which is the most recent. It uses what's called the Eternal Blue exploit. The other thing that happens is that it installs the double pulsar remote access Trojan. And it also installs Tor to facilitate communications with the ransomware author. So what it does, it attempts to infect all connected drives. So if you have network drives at work, it will do similar to what you saw that Jigsaw would do. It'll also jump through remote desktop sessions. So if you have a remote desktop session to another machine, it can jump in there and encrypt it. Since this is a worm, it doesn't require any intervention by the user for it to spread. Eternal Blue and Double Pulsar, the two exploits, We're part of the Shadow Brokers release of the NSA Equations Group's hacking tools earlier this year. Microsoft came out with a patch for the Eternal Blue exploit back in March. If you're running Windows Vista 7, 8.1, and 10, which are actually the only supported desktop systems, and you don't have them patched, you're vulnerable. Microsoft kind of made an unprecedented move that Friday afternoon when they released a patch for unsupported systems. XP, the original Windows 8, not 8.1, and then Server 2003. I can tell you, in our enterprise, we still have Windows 2000 servers. So it's very frightening. If you're,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there an easy way to see if your router blocks SMB version 1?
pretty much if you have a router, you're good.
Okay.
I can't think of, I mean, you would have to go ahead and open that up. By default, it's going to be blocked. If you're running Windows 10, because Microsoft basically forces you to go through the update cycle every month, you're pretty much invulnerable. By saying that you want to go behind a router that blocks Server Messenger block version 1, pretty much every home router will do that. I can't think of anybody that would hook up their computer directly to a cable modem or a DSL modem without having a router in between.
Is that a particular port?
Yes, it would be port 135, well, a collection of ports, 135 through 137, and then 445. Going back to XP, you can uninstall SMB version 1, and I've got a link at the end of the presentation for instructions on that. So, attribution was originally thought to be the work of a nation state, but it actually turns out, or at least the latest evidence, is that it's the work of the Lazarus Group. And this Lazarus Group, they were responsible for the 2014 Sony Pictures hack. I don't know if you remember, that came out when they were releasing the movie about North Korea. I can't remember the name of it.
With the journalist, huh?
Yeah. There were also, back in 2016, they siphoned 81 millions from the Central Bangladesh Bank, taking advantage of unauthenticated ACH transfers. Okay, so support scams. These are, everybody's probably had these. You get a phone call, this is Microsoft, this is, I don't know, Apple. They're going to try to social engineer you. They're basically going to try to convince you to do something that you normally wouldn't do. They're going to tell you that you're infected, or generally, usually you're going to be infected, or your neighbors are using your internet connection. What they'll try to do is get you to install a remote access tool, and what they'll do is they'll immediately install a second one that you won't know about, and that's to allow them to continue having access into your machine. What they'll do is they'll open up a command prompt and run NBT stat or netstat and show you a big list of network connections. Or they'll open up your event logs and show you a bunch of errors. And then they'll offer to go ahead and fix it for $300, $400. They'll go ahead and, we'll install a nice tool to prevent this. And one of the more recent ones is, let's sign you up for a service contract. So they keep bleeding you every month.
Well, they always say,
We have found 1,000 problems with your computer.
Right.
It's not over 5 or 10, it's 1,000.
But aside from that, are they doing something in your computer at the same time?
Oh yes, oh yes. What's frightening, my dad's cousin, he's older gentleman, early 80s, had gotten multiple calls on this, and had always told them, you know, go away, I know I'm not infected. Well, somehow succumbed to it and let somebody get onto his machine and got all concerned when he saw all these network connections and these errors in these event logs, and let them on his machine. And then he walked away from it for a half an hour. So
They turned it off quickly.
no, he didn't turn it off. He left the guy on there on purpose. So I've got other things to do. I'll head off. So the frightening thing, yes.
I bid on that a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
The reason I did it, I was on a Microsoft web page.
Yeah.
And up on the top of their web page, they said technical support. Call this 888 number, which I did. And they talked me into it. I bid on it, and I paid $168.
Oh, wow.
All it did was lock my computer up.
Yeah.
He called again last week to tell me I had something wrong. They're saying that they're on Microsoft's page.
Yeah. Yeah, what they'll do is they'll go ahead and they'll sneak in a funny little URL that first look, it's, oh, it looks like Microsoft. But it's Microsoft with 1 or 2 letters swapped or something like that, or, you know, a 0 instead of an O. And the next thing you know, oh, well, I'm going to call these guys up, and you got a problem. Yep. So my dad's cousin, he called me. Oh, can you come take a look? Luckily, I was able to find the software that they had installed. I was able to remove it. He actually called because whatever they had installed broke his internet connection. So I was able to get that fixed, and I think they did that to get him to call back and, you know, keep squeezing. But what was really scary is that he had information, personal information, including social security numbers and addresses and dates of birth of people on his computer. So I'm not sure, hopefully they didn't get hit. Wireless networks, most people just come home from Best Buy or Office Depot or the mailbox from Amazon and plug it in. They don't bother to go ahead and configure it correctly. A lot of people use public wireless. Synonymous with public is going to be insecure, untrusted, and open. It's very risky. And a while back, there was a flaw with, I believe it was the Intel wireless network drivers that you could take over the machine without, but there was an issue with it. So if you don't update or patch your wireless drivers, that can become a problem.
Question.
Yes.
The public thing, is that like a coffee shop that has free
Yes.
Wi-Fi? So you're saying if you're on their system, you're vulnerable?
Yes.
Wow. All right.
Because I'll go into a little more detail coming up, but
A laptop from work over there.
Yeah, including donut shops.
yeah.
I didn't have no clue.
Yeah. Internet of Things, this new category, smart TVs. The problem with smart TVs is they come with these great little applications for Netflix and Hulu and stuff, but they never get updated. Vizio was detected spying on their customers through their TV. We also have smart appliances. This is a picture of a smart refrigerator at Home Depot running Pornhub rather.
How were they spying? You say visually spying on their customers?
Yes, I mean either listening or collecting data on them.
Collecting data.
Yeah. I know some of the TVs, they come with cameras built in for Skype and microphones as well. Hardware failure. This is something that I'm sure a lot of us have experienced. So hardware can fail at any time. Power surges, they can take out multiple components at once. I've seen power supplies, a failing power supply take out a processor and motherboard at the same time. Hard drives crash. SSDs are even more difficult to recover data from, if it can be recovered at all. And data recovery services, the cheapest one I know of is $300. And that's not a guarantee that they can get the data for you. Weather, hurricanes, you know, we live in Louisiana, so we know about that. Seems like we've had more tornadoes in recent memory. Floods, that's always a problem. And I know several of us can talk about the problems with lightning. Infrastructure, you know, we're in an older city, and some of us have older houses. So the power distribution infrastructure is older, and that tends to be susceptible to voltage spikes and outages. About 20 years ago, I lived uptown, and any time the wind blew harder than about 20-25 miles an hour, we'd have a power outage.
That's because they wouldn't let them cut the oak trees.
Yeah.
Come out of the wire.
Yeah. And then you also have to worry about squirrels and varmints chewing on your wires. This is a picture. This was at a house in Metairie after Katrina. And this is the first time I've seen it with outlets and a timer outside. So what can we do? Actually, Shaq Fu was a video game, a Sega video game back in the early 90s. So we want to improve our security awareness, improve our security posture, improve our security practices, and try to prepare and follow a plan. You know, we hear about making and following a plan with hurricanes. You can do something similar with your computers. So let's start at the network, and we want to go ahead and secure our wireless networks. This is a scary fact for a lot of people, but wireless networks can be breached. Generally, it's not a matter of if, it's just how long it takes to get in. But what we want to do is try to make it as difficult as possible for an attacker to get in. First thing you can do is upgrade your router's firmware. If there isn't a new firmware, or if you have an older router, replace it. The newer ones are going to be much faster anyhow. One of the features that a lot of the routers come with for easy setup is called Wi-Fi protected setup, or WPS. Disable it. If you leave it on, an attacker, I'm going to say an attacker, I could get into your wireless network in a matter of minutes. It's very simple to do. Don't bother doing some things that were recommended 10 years ago. Don't try to hide your SSID or your network name. Don't try to use MAC address filtering. You can sniff the wireless network traffic, and you'll see what the network name is, and then you'll see the other wireless clients with their MAC addresses re-authenticate, and you know, hey, I can take that MAC address, clone it to mine, and I can get in. So it's really, you're not really gaining anything with that.
Even if you don't know the SSID password?
Yes. Well, that's part of the step-by-step you would take to break in. So once you get the SSID, and you know the MAC address stuff is just okay. It's useless. But once you get the SSID, then you can determine what the encryption method is and attack it from there. When you set your encryption, use WPA2 PSK, which is short for pre-shared key, with AES encryption. If you use WEP still, somebody's in your network. If you're using something older like WPA1 with TKIP, somebody may be in your network. Those are much easier to bypass. When you set your passphrase, make it long and make it complex. Use upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. Shorter passphrases are much easier to attack. What a lot of hackers do is they use what's called rainbow tables. And what they are is they're pre-computed hash tables. And the reason that they do that is that it saves them on the back end of trying to crack a password. All they need to do is go ahead and get the hash, and then they just match it up. And they've got different sets pre-calculated for like the top 2,000 passwords, I believe. They're large. They're very large. They take up a lot of space. But that's one of the reasons that's the trade-off that you use, size for speed.
So you're saying modify the password that it defaults with them?
Absolutely.
Change that immediately.
Absolutely.
But with my wireless, wouldn't they have to be in the vicinity?
Yes, but you have no idea how far away your wireless might carry.
Well, I know it's within a couple hundred feet, right?
Yeah, and somebody could kind of drop something in the bushes by your house, right? And it's a cellular device that's listening, and
I follow you, okay.
Oh, so that's what they remotely do it?
I
that's
live just south of Lake Pontchartrain, and I have a piece of software that'll list all the wireless networks
Oh,
that are
sure.
available.
Yeah, yeah.
42 of them showed up.
You know, you can see that on your phone and like
Yeah.
connecting to a network. You can see
42.
there's a bunch.
yeah, right.
My question is, I had to turn my computer off at night. I got up one morning this week and my computer was on when I got up.
Hmm.
And it's up to the password. How can they get into my computer if it turns off and gets up?
If Wake on LAN is set, it's basically the wireless network card stays on even though the rest of the computer's off. And if it's hit with the right packet, it will start your computer up. Also, if it's Windows 10, a lot of times if you think you're turning it off, you're actually hibernating it. And it will wake itself up to install updates. So last thing is change the default SSID and passphrase. Those are very insecure. Most new wireless routers have guest networks. Make use of those. If you have kids or grandkids, put them on the guest wireless. I've got, a teen and a tween. I keep them completely segregated. I don't want them on my network. Some wireless routers have what they call personal VLANs for virtual LANs. They also call it wireless client isolation. And what this does is it separates wireless clients where they can't talk to each other. This can help prevent some things from spreading. The last thing is don't give out your passphrase to your main network. Don't type it into somebody's computer or phone. Pulling that from a Windows computer is, a command line thing about this long. Very simple to do. For public Wi-Fi, just avoid it. A lot of hotspots, they're unencrypted, so your what they call clear text, which means there's no encryption on it. It can be read directly from there. You'll have your username and your password pass right by, and whoever's sitting there looking at it will see it. You also have to worry about rogue access points. And what you can do with that is you can set up a computer with wireless, and it's going to go ahead and broadcast itself as, I don't know, Starbucks, AT&T. And what it'll do is it will look for people to connect to it. And it will then decrypt their traffic, scavenge it for username and passwords and anything else that it might find useful, and then re-encrypt it and then send it on. That's called a man-in-the-middle attack. So you want to be careful with those. Go ahead and use your cellular data of your, or turn on your personal hotspot. The data is not that expensive. If you have to use public Wi-Fi, use a trusted VPN to at least tunnel your traffic. So we get on to computers. For your shack computer, go ahead and use a dedicated computer. Restrict your shack computer to rig control, logging, QRZ lookups, connecting to clusters, that sort of stuff. Don't use it for casual web surfing, sending emails, reading emails, looking at YouTube videos. If you're worried about Windows, you can go ahead and use a Linux or Mac computer in there as well. And if you're really concerned, you can go ahead and put your shack on an isolated VLAN or virtual LAN. And what that will do is completely separate it from the rest of your home network's traffic. Patch your operating system. WannaCry is a good reminder of why you want to keep your operating system patched. So you want to make sure you're using a supported operating system. Right now, Windows 7 Service Pack 1 fully patched, Windows 8.1, not original Windows 8, but 8.1 fully patched, 10, and Server 2008 R2 through 2016 are supported. Earlier versions of Windows are not, and actually I think Vista is still supported now as well. So earlier versions are not supported, they're not getting patches. The WannaCry patch was an exception. Don't expect that every time something new comes out. And if you've got a machine that you bought back in the XP era, more than likely it can run Windows 7. You may need to upgrade the RAM, or it can certainly run Linux. Microsoft patches usually once, if not twice a month. They've started sending out some patches on the 4th Tuesday. Generally, it's the 2nd Tuesday of the month. And configure your operating system to automatically check and install patches. It's not difficult to do, and it's just so much easier that way. Patch your applications. I'd say go for the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit is Java, Flash, and Adobe Acrobat. These are the most, how would I want to put it? These are the easiest ways, application-wise, to break into someone's computer. They're the most often exploited by malware because they don't get patched when the operating system gets patched a lot of times. So Java, they'll generally notify you when there's an update available. Update it unless you've got a really good reason for not updating it. And then there are other steps you can take to lock it down. That's take a little more time to describe that. But update it as soon as possible, because usually the updates, they're already being exploited. But most important, if you don't need it, just uninstall it. Adobe Flash will install updates after a reboot. Again, if you don't need it, uninstall it. And you can disable the built-in plugin in Chrome. Acrobat, you can check for updates. I haven't used it. I haven't used it in a long time, so there may be a way to automate those checks. But you may want to consider using a different PDF reader. I've been using Foxit Reader for a long time. Cute PDF is another one that it's a portable application and will not run scripts. All it'll do is just display the PDF. So if you have software that you don't use or you don't need, go ahead and uninstall it. Use a utility like Revo Uninstaller. Not only will it uninstall the software, but it cleans up after it. It'll remove all the registry entries and files and folders that get left behind by the uninstaller. Use an application like Personal Software Inspector. This will run, check all of the software that you have installed, find out what version it is, and then go out and tell you, hey, we can update this list of software. Would you like me to do it for you? So you can automate updating your applications. If you have other applications that can automatically update themselves, go ahead and enable that. You also want to periodically update your drivers. A good utility for that is Snappy Driver Installer. It's free. Use a good anti-malware tool or utility, or actually two. I probably have 4 or 5 going at home. What you want to do is pick a good, solid primary anti-malware tool. Malwarebytes, the latest version, Malwarebytes 3, can actually act as your antivirus, but it'll happily coexist with another product. Microsoft Defender comes for free. Avira has paid and free versions. Bitdefender as well. I like their free one. It's very, very lightweight. Avast has paid and free. ESET has a paid one. It's also very good. Norton, Zone Alarm, it's still out there. You don't hear about it a lot, but it's still there. And then a good secondary utility to look at, ransom free. It's supposed to prevent ransomware. Crypto Prevent is another one that what it does is it prevents applications from running from places that they shouldn't be running. Super Anti-Spyware is another program similar to Malwarebytes. Spybot Anti-Beacon, that's one of the things that Windows 10's kind of got notorious about, is how much data it reports back to Microsoft about you. Well, Spybot Anti-Beacon will go in and shut all of that down. And whenever Windows updates itself, you can run it again and it will go in and return those things off because Microsoft's going to want to turn it back on. Don't run as an administrator, or if you're Mac OS or Linux, don't run as root. If you run as a regular user, 90% of all Windows vulnerabilities will be blocked. Most malware relies on the fact that people run as administrator. And actually, you know, as we get into more and more modern operating systems, it's a lot easier to run as a regular user. Another thing you'd want to do is create unprivileged guest accounts on your machines for anybody that uses your computer. If you've got kids or grandkids that get on your machine periodically, create unprivileged guest accounts for them. If they go ahead and they get it screwed up, no big deal. You delete the profile and start all over again. And I can promise you that they will infect your system. I rebuilt my dad's system, I guess a little over a year ago, and I went ahead and set him up where he has the administrator's password, but he runs as an unprivileged user, and he has a guest account set up for the grandkids. It used to be where I was getting calls once a week, twice a week. Oh, can you remote in and fix this for me? Now it's maybe once every 2 or 3 months. Hey, can you show me how to print out a Chrome or something like that? It's no more, can you clean this up for me? So file sharing, you may not be doing it, but people who are using your machine may be. So you want to make sure you know what you're uploading or downloading. Make sure it isn't copyrighted. Make sure it isn't some illegal material. Child pornography is a big concern, or could contain malware. A big concern with file sharing, it uses a large amount of data. Sharing copyrighted materials will get you in trouble with your ISP. They will terminate your internet account. If it's something like a new movie release, the copyright holder will go after you. We have students that live on campus. We regularly get notifications that they were detected downloading a new movie or a new TV show, and we have to go in and basically tell them, you know, you get 3 tries at it. 3rd try and your connection gets cut off. And then, you know, we all know if you happen to get caught sharing child pornography, you're going to prison.
Do you recommend turning file sharing off?
Sharing within your own network, no.
Okay.
No, but you don't want to be running BitTorrent and stuff like that where you're sharing outside of your network. Wares, this is hacked or cracked software. Just consider it virus infested. A keygen, which is basically if you download a piece of registered software that requires a serial number, a keygen is a program that will generate one for you. Consider it malware as well. If you're trying to steal a program, it's probably worth buying, or there's probably going to be a free or open source alternative that you can use. We're relatively lucky as ham radio operators. Most ham radio programs are free or relatively low cost. But say, you know, you're looking for a logging and rig control program and you don't want to pay the Ham Radio Deluxe fine. Well, they've got plenty of other applications out there that will gladly step in and do the same thing for you. Email. You need to be careful with email attachments. The best thing you can do is to download the attachment and scan it with an up-to-date malware scanner. You can also upload the file to VirusTotal. That's a website that will compare it and run it through, I believe, 48 different antivirus engines and check it for you. What about those emails that mom and dad sent, or, you know, my buddy from the cubicle next door, or, oh, it's from FedEx and I'm waiting for a package? Are you really sure that that's who sent you the email? Because it's very easy to spoof the from address. And then are you sure that they're not sending you, it could be the real person, but maybe they're infected and they're spreading that infection. So you want to be careful with that. One of the good steps you want to do when you're setting up your computer initially is configure Explorer in Windows to display all the file extensions. What a lot of malware will do is that they know that Windows will hide the last file extension on a file. So they'll go ahead and they'll say, you know, call the file good news dot whatever dot JPG, and say, oh, well, gee, it looks like a JPEG file. It should be a picture. But what you don't realize is that it's actually .jpg.exe, and it's actually a piece of malware that's going to go ahead. It may display a photo, but it's also infecting your machine. So showing that will help you recognize those files, should set off your spidey senses. Hey, I shouldn't be setting that off. Yes.
You say don't download the attachment, don't open attachments, but you download it.
Right.
You download it, isn't it on your computer?
It is, but
It's not.
unless it's something that we haven't seen before, just because you've downloaded it doesn't mean that it's going to execute.
Okay.
Chris,
Yes.
what about these emails you get from a friend that has about 15 forwards on it?
Yeah,
Is that susceptible?
it can be, because a lot of people use free email services, or they've got something that it's going to inject something in there as, oh, we'll scan by Avast antivirus at the bottom of it. And maybe it wasn't. It could be a piece of malware putting something in there that they've got a link on there and say, oh, well, you know, this guy's using this, and maybe I want to go ahead and try it out. And you click on that link and boom, you're infected. So, you know, I would, you know, you want to exercise care with it.
I don't accept it.
Yeah, I've got a filter for that, particularly for my dad, because he's bad about forwarding stuff.
There was a program that came out, I think it may have been Windows 95 or something like that, called Mail Washer. Are you familiar with it?
I think I remember
Yeah,
that.
what it allows you to do is you look at mainly the header, and you can select how much of the body of the email.
Okay.
You look at it out on the server.
Right.
Don't bring anything into your computer. And you can then go down the list and call it spam, delete it, whatever. And then you wash that out, and then you download what you think is good back
Right.
to your computer. I've been using it since, God, forever.
Well, I may have to get a link from you for that.
Okay.
I say this as I'm using PowerPoint, but consider not using Microsoft Office.
I'd love not to use it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got to use it for work, but there are multiple online Office suites, and Microsoft Office Online, it's free to use to individuals, and it's generally resistant to malware because it's actually running in the cloud, not on your computer. Google has free applications, Docs, Sheets, and Slides, which are alternatives to Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. You also might want to consider using a non-Microsoft Office suite. LibreOffice and OpenOffice are both solid suites, and Apple has Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. And if you've got an iDevice, I believe the downloads for those are free.
The nice thing about Libre and OpenOffice is when Microsoft decided to go from the regular DOC Office file to the DOCX, if you receive a DOCX file and you're still using the older version of Office, you can't read it.
Yeah.
But you take it into OpenOffice and Libre, and they can read it.
Yeah, when they went to the XML-based format,
Yeah.
that wiped out those old versions of Office that people were still running. It was a money-generating
Yes, it was.
move. Secure your web browser. If you're using an insecure or out-of-date browser, go ahead and upgrade. Firefox and Chrome are generally a little more secure than Internet Explorer, and Internet Explorer, just stop using it. Microsoft has deprecated it. The only reason that it still exists is that they have corporate applications that were written specifically for Internet Explorer, so we're stuck using it with that. Use a browser or multiple browser extensions to enhance your online security and your privacy. They've got some good extensions like AdBlock, Privacy Badger, Ghostery, and NoScript. They do a real good job of not only cleaning up the web pages, but blocking stuff that you don't want to have in your web browser. And as usual, avoid questionable websites.
What's a browser extension?
A browser extension is an add-on to the browser. Yes.
Like doing something like you're on a website and then it comes up that you've won something. What is that all about? Tell me what that is.
That's what they used to call a pop-under. Instead of being a pop-up, it's a piece of code that will come up underneath the website. It's advertising.
But it'll say you won like a phone or something like that, or
Yeah.
you won $1,000. What, like, why? What is? I mean, like, is it? It's not legitimate. What happens when you click it?
You go to a place that you're not supposed to go.
And then what does that do?
It will probably try to infect your machine.
Okay.
Or it's phishing.
So what
Yes.
you do is you just exit out of it and get away from it.
Yeah,
Is that what? Okay.
that's the best thing you can do.
And then you just exit out again. And you just try to get away.
Yeah, you're probably stuck in an infinite loop at some point, but
And if it's happening often, you need to run malware bytes or something.
Yeah.
What if it happens on your phone?
Anti-malware.
if it happens on your phone, what you need to do is clear your cache.
What's that mean?
You need to go into your settings for, I'm guessing, Safari, and you can clear your cache there, and that will stop it. What it does, a certain amount of the websites, the stuff that doesn't change often, it gets stored on your phone so it doesn't have to re-download it.
Okay.
And something gets caught in there that is causing these pop-ups or pop-unders or advertisements. Yeah.
Clear history of website data.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
That keeps happening.
Something that you've probably seen but may not have put a name to it. Multi-factor authentication. Using a second factor will protect you even if your password gets compromised. When you're talking about doing authentication, it's usually something you have, something you are, and something you know. So something you are, that's going to be your username. Something you know is your password. Something you have would be that second factor. And usually what you see it as, PayPal distributed them. They're these little fobs that attach to your keychain, and every 30 seconds they generate a new 6-digit number.
Like an RSA file?
Yes. I've got what they call a soft token on mine that will, let's see, here it is.
Apple does it by sending you a text.
Yeah. So I've got 5 different things in mine for different services. And they actually, I think these are changing every minute. But what's nice about this is that if you happen to give up your username and password, your account's still safe because they shouldn't have this. When you do set it up, and I'm going to have a link to an article that will tell you how to set up multi-factor authentication for some of the most common online services. You want to try to get it set up with either the soft token or their own authenticator app. They used to do it with SMS messaging, and a lot of them still do it like that. But about a week and a half ago, another hacking group basically used the fact that the system that the telephone companies use for sending SMS messages between themselves, they use that to go ahead and grab those codes from people and got into their accounts even though they had two-factor. So NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, used to be National Bureau of Standards. They deprecated the use of SMS. So we want to try to avoid that if we can.
Is that where your bank or whatever sends you a text to your
Yes.
phone? Okay. And that's been exploited?
It has been. Now, they have to know your password as well.
Yeah.
But they have hacked into that back end between the phone companies where they can actually get that text message. So they know what that is. I mean, you're in a race to use it.
Yeah, right.
But, if they can get it before you have a chance to type it in, you could be in trouble. Consider using a password management tool. Some examples are LastPass, KeePass, RoboForm. I use LastPass myself. I've been using that for about 6 or 7 years. What I like about it, it prevents password reuse. The idea is you want to use a different password for every website or service, because if one of them gets broken into and they steal their password file and their user list, then that's the only account that you have to worry about. Your other accounts have different passwords.
I'll argue with that because I use LastPass, and I do have some duplicate passwords. It's constantly telling me, hey, you better straighten that out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop you from doing it. You can be bad, still be bad.
Yeah, I've still got some duplicates from years ago.
But it allows you to generate some very complicated
Yes. Yeah, and that's one of the nice things is that most of them, and I know LastPass does, has a password generator, and you can tell it, I want 16 digits with all kind of complexity, and you never have to memorize it. It memorizes it for you. All you have to do is remember the master password to get in.
So you shouldn't have the computer remember the password?
No.
Okay, now I'm in trouble.
No. It's convenient, but yeah. And I know LastPass and I think some of the other ones may also support multi-factor authentication for them.
And they're multi-platform. I mean, you can use it on your
Yes.
iPhone, your Windows computer.
Yes.
So you only have to use that one password for any device.
Right.
Is it kept in the cloud?
It is.
So
And it can also be,
computer burns up at home.
it's still up there. Yeah. Yeah, I've got LastPass on my phone. I've got it on iPad, 5 or 6 computers. And I've got 2-factor on it. So if I want to log into it from somewhere that I haven't before, I can go ahead and do that, and it'll ask me to go ahead and generate and enter that code. Back up your data. The 2 main kind of backups you normally deal with Windows computers are image backups, which are basically a copy of the entire hard drive. And those come in handy if you have a disaster, you need to restore the entire system. The other type is a file backup, and that's where you back up the individual files and folders, and if you happen to delete something that you wanted, you can easily restore it, the entire file, the file, or if you needed to restore an entire folder. That comes in handy if you're trying to recover from an accidental deletion or malware incident. 2 main locations for backups are going to be local and in the cloud. Local backups are usually going to be stored on a USB device. It can be an external hard drive, a thumb disk, CD, DVD, Blu-ray discs, tape. I don't know if anybody has tape, but we still use tape at work. Network shares, and I'm probably missing a few others. If you're going to do local backups, consider encrypting them because they probably contain passwords or protected data like social security numbers, credit card numbers, dates of birth, software registration keys that you probably don't want to get leaked. If you back up on a connected device, and a connected device is anything that appears in Windows with a drive letter, make sure you disconnect it after you complete the backup, because if you happen to catch a piece of ransomware and it's still connected, it can encrypt your backups and hold them for ransom. So all that work you did to make the backup, it's useless. And if you're going to do local backups, consider doing multiple and take a copy physically away from your house and store it somewhere. Store it at, you know, your kid's house, your grandparents' house, your aunt's house, a buddy's house. It should be encrypted, so that should be okay. But if your house burns down, you've got a copy there. Cloud backups, some common providers are Carbonite, CrashPlan, Backblaze. Cloud backups, they're usually going to be more resistant to ransomware because they don't appear as a drive letter in Windows. What's nice is that some of the cloud backup providers will provide multiple generations. So if you say, well, I want to get that file version from 2 months ago, you may still be able to do that. And I know CrashPlan offers this option for disasters. And what they will do is they will actually take your full backup, put it on an encrypted drive, and overnight it to you for recovery. So, you know, obviously the local backup's going to be faster, but the cloud backups can work really well. As
What do they charge for this kind of service?
it's not cheap. Probably a couple $100.
A year or what?
Oh, well, let's say like CrashPlan, an unlimited backup from a single machine, I think it's under $60 a year. If you need to do the disaster, I need a hard drive shipped with my backups, you're probably looking at a couple $100 for that. Protect your equipment. Make sure you've got a surge suppressor or UPS. Make sure your cables aren't frayed or pinched. Make sure your plugs are fully inserted. Periodically vacuum the interior of your computer case. If you're like me, dust happens. If it's really bad, disconnect everything, take your computer outside and hit it with a leaf blower. Don't aim it directly at the little fans on the computer because they're not built to handle those speeds. But it's a legitimate way of getting rid of dust. And then make sure you use ferrite clip-ons. It will not only prevent interference, but it'll prevent problems, you know, with components inside your computer. Sanitize your hard drives. So you want to use a secure wipe utility before you sell, dispose of, or gift an old computer or hard drive. And from experience, bullets do a great job. This was from about 2 years ago. We got rid of some hard drives. So don't fall for support scams. Microsoft will never call you unless you pay them a lot of money for a support incident. And then you're stuck talking to a guy in India. They have no way of knowing whether or not your computer's infected. But your ISP might. If you become part of a botnet, there's a good chance the ISP will try to contact you and try to get you to either take your machine offline, or they may actually take it offline for you. If you do get a notification from your ISP by email, call them up and verify that it's legitimate. Event log errors and multiple network connections, they're normal, they're expected. I've never seen an event log that doesn't have an error in it at one point or another. And the thing you have to remember, multiple network connections, that means network connections from each application that's running. It's not, oh, well, there's a bunch of people using my connection to the internet. It's like, no, it's you've got a bunch of things running on your machine. So, you know, they could very well each have connections going out. I generally run with anywhere from 15 to 30 tabs open in Chrome. So it looks like Chrome is going crazy, but, you know, that's what happens. And please, whatever you do, don't give a stranger access to your computer. You know, doing that, you know, God forbid, walking away while they're still on. You know, you've opened your wallet, you've given them information about your retirement account. Heck, you've even given them the key to your liquor cabinet, probably. So please don't do it. So I've got quite a bit of online resources. Securing the Human, this is a monthly magazine article. Well, it's actually a PDF file, and they cover a different topic each month. They're written by security professionals, but they're written to be read by regular folk. ASD Strategies, that's the Australian Signal Directorate. They came out with a list of tactics that you can use to mitigate cybersecurity incidents. One of their top 4, and that's the second link below it, is don't run as administrator. One of their other recommendations, which is something that you may be able to get away with in an enterprise, but trying to do it at home is difficult, is to whitelist your applications. The Better Business Bureau Scam Tracker, they've got not only cyber scams, but other scams as well. So that's a good resource. Phishme.com has free phishing training to help you identify phishing emails. Here's a link that shows you how to uninstall Server Messenger Block version 1 from all the different versions of Windows. No, you will have to reboot, but no, you won't notice anything different. You know, a few links about how to protect your machine from ransomware. The top link is the video that we looked at showing ransomware in action. Some more information about the Eternal Blue exploit. Some more ransomware links. That's the link for VirusTotal, where you can submit a file to have it checked. Personal Software Inspector, that will check your programs and see if there are updates available. Snappy Driver Installer to update your drivers. Ransom Free and Crypto Prevent are both anti-ransomware programs. A couple of links on how to remove admin rights. We did that as a group at work about 3 years ago, and it's actually a lot easier to deal with than you would think. Got a link to review of some password management applications. This is the information on how to enable multi-factor authentication for your online applications. Review of some cloud backup providers. Information on support scams, and these are mostly kind of an overview of the whole tech support scam ecosystem. Actually, last week the Federal Trade Commission has gone after some people. They had one company, and I believe they were based out of Tampa, that they built, I believe it was double-digit millions out of people. And every year Verizon comes out with a data breach investigation report. This link kind of gives you the highlights of it. And that's it.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you all.